In 2016, a bizarre story is lighting up social media. A Washington, D.C. pizza shop, of all places, is allegedly at the heart of a secret child trafficking ring run by powerful elites. The story spreads like wildfire. People argue, share, and believe. It escalates so much that a man walks into the restaurant with a gun, convinced he's rescuing children from a non-existent basement. This was Pizzagate, a dangerous blend of misinformation and disinformation, proving just how quickly things can spiral out of control and cause real harm. Welcome back to Unlocked 403, your favorite cybersecurity podcast brought to you by ESET. My name is Bex, and today the topic is misinformation, disinformation, and hoaxes. And yes, those are three different things. And today, to talk to me about that, I have Jakub Šimko from the Research Institute, KINET. You are a lead researcher. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You are our one guest for this season who is outside of ESET, so it's very exciting for me to have you here. What exactly does your institute focus on?
Well, we are a artificial intelligence research institute. We focus on several areas regarding AI. One is like NLP, natural language processing. Connected to that is web and user data processing, which is the name of my research group, where we deal mostly with recommender systems and disinformation countering. Mm-hmm. Our institute also has two other research teams. One is focused on environment and green energy, and last team is non-technical research. Those are people dealing with AI ethics and law and regulation.
As I said in the beginning, there are three phrases or three words: misinformation, disinformation, and hoaxes. And I have to confess, I sometimes don't get them right myself, but let's hear it. What is the difference between them?
All right, so all these three things can be like under the umbrella of false informations. Mm-hmm. All these concepts denote a false information. However, with misinformation, it is not clear whether that misinformation or the false information is spread deliberately, mm-hmm. intentionally. With disinformation, we should be able to attribute a bad intent or intent to spread a false info.
Okay. So let's say misinformation would be a media outlet makes a mistake and then they correct themselves.
For example,
disinformation would be someone deliberately creating something fake and sharing it.
Yeah, or just sharing a known false information.
Okay.
And with hoax is basically a synonym for false information that has been spread sufficiently, let's say, that that is like gained traction with attention. Mm-hmm. But it's sometimes used interchangeably.
Why do you think these sorts of false news are so quick to spread?
Well, there are several reasons. Mm-hmm. First of all, not all false information spread quickly. Mm-hmm. I would say only a minority of them spreads quickly, because only those that sufficiently cater to prejudices of the audiences gets spread disproportionately wide. Mm-hmm. The bad actors that are like deliberately generating disinformation always try multiple stories, and then they test which of those actually work.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting.
So of course there are several factors that boost the spread. Mm-hmm. First of all, easy access to information online. But then there are also recommender systems on social media that basically target the content to people that would be most receptive.
Mm-hmm. So those would be the For You pages.
For example, mm-hmm. some content gets to right ears or eyes simply by virtue of the social graph, mm-hmm. that has this property called homophily, which means that people that share similar interests are usually clustered together with more connections in between them, and therefore when something is appealing to a subgroup of them, it has a tendency to spread to the entire group.
Okay. Are there certain topics that are spread more quickly or more wildly than others? Let's say, are political topics more likely to spread, or, I don't know, natural catastrophes, or...
Well, in general, there are. It's not static, I would say. Of course, we can find some usual suspects. Politics is sometimes, or in many countries, is like perceived with lots of attention. But we would probably find like counter examples from like very well functioning countries like, I don't know, Nordics, Austria, Switzerland. Politics there tends to be much more boring than we may
be used to.
Be used to, yes.
Yeah, especially 2024 was quite a year for politics, right? We had a lot of elections and there was a lot of misinformation and disinformation spread around that.
10 years ago, it was probably similar as well. I have a feeling, but that's just a personal observation, that every year is sort of like exciting.
Yeah. At the end of every year, we say, oh, what a year that was.
Yes.
Have the tactics evolved in any way?
Tactics of misinformation spreading, or disinformation spreading, to be precise.
Yes.
In some sense, they did, first of all, 10 years ago, the number of platforms usable for that was different. Today, we actually have more social media platforms.
Yeah.
Also, the algorithms of the platforms, the recommender systems have changed. Several things were actually more favorable back then to misinformation spreaders. Some aspects are more favorable today, maybe.
Okay.
The preferred form of content has changed quite a bit. So like 10 years ago, you wouldn't see these like short videos, reels, etc. Yes. It was more about perhaps images and short texts. So this changed as well. I wouldn't say that people changed. People don't change that quickly. Still, even like the sensitivity to certain topics can change over time in a society, regardless of the social media platforms and their design.
What about attention span?
Attention span,
That's
I
changed.
can't. Well, I think so too, but I'm not really an expert on that. So,
But do you think it might have contributed to the difference in the type of content that is recommended to people?
It may be the attention span itself, but it also may be like the expectation of designers that the attention span is getting shorter. So therefore, they opt to make the user interfaces for shorter content, and they design the recommender systems to favor such content. So it's a chicken and egg problem. Probably these two factors like feeding each other.
And before this sort of false news gets spread, it has to be created somehow. So what's going on in the background? How are they creating these deep fakes, or are they bots or troll farms, or what exactly are we talking about here?
Okay, so like deep fake is just one type of false content. Yes. Quite a recent development. So okay, there may be false content creators that help themselves by generative AI, for example, to like fabricate completely fictitious content. But I would still say this is just a smaller fraction of the entire false information content that gets spread. Most of the false information is just talking heads, lying to the audiences, politicians or some influencers. Then there's a lot of just text messages. There's a lot of content with images pulled out of their original context and let's say put into a new context, which makes them together with the text a false information. So So basically, people who create misleading content or outright false content are doing so like the old style way still. They are inventing stories or like inventing twists on real stories. Then they try to spread them, and as I said, test what gets more attention. And just a fraction of these things are like aided by generative AI. Of course, we may see more generative AI in the future. It's not like ruled out. We may even see, like in the worst case, the entire automated frameworks that generate stories, test them, and then promote them more where they work.
Okay.
I can like picture that in my mind, but I also believe we are not there yet.
I should say thankfully. Or?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But still, I feel like that's a very good point that you just made, that a lot of times when we see these deep fakes, you can kind of tell that it's fake, or maybe after a few seconds you can tell. Well, depending on your background and awareness on the topic, of course.
Awareness is very important factor.
Yeah, that's what we're doing here. But it's very interesting to think about it like, oh yeah, it's not just the technological advancement, but it's the human psychology that really creates these types of false information. Is it always for personal gain?
Well, some people do it for money. Some companies do it for money. Some other companies or entities do it for power, for influence. There may be people driven by some selfless ideology, but most ideologies, in fact, aren't selfless, even if they like present themselves as such.
So this might be a good time to switch to YouTube for those of you who are just listening. So, because you're an expert on misinformation, disinformation, we found this quiz by TrueMedia.org, which is a nonprofit organization from America. They show some images, videos, audio that might be true or might be false, and it's up to you to decide which it is, and let's see if you get them right.
Okay.
Yeah?
Let's do this.
Cool with you? Okay. All right, let's get it started. Right. Mexican presidential candidate. Is this image true? Is it real?
The flag is upside down. But I'm not sure whether that's an indication.
That could be an accident, yeah.
You know, the composition of the image, and I don't follow Mexican politics. Okay, let's I would say it's false. The flag is upside down.
Okay.
I mean the pole may look strangely like at the point.
Correct. Fake image. The flag is upside down. Well done. You are an expert. Okay, let's see the next one. President Joe Biden with a World War II veteran. Could this image be true?
Okay, what we can do here, like to because the image is quite like sharp, so we can be looking for like inconsistencies. I don't know, counting fingers. There are no fingers here, so yeah. If it is fake, it's very convincing. Yes, but let's like mark this as real.
Okay.
Let's try this.
Well done.
Okay.
Okay, next one. Supreme leader of North Korea.
Democracy is a fragile thing, more fragile than you want to believe. If the election fails, there is no democracy. I don't have to do anything. You're doing it to yourselves. People are divided. Your voting districts are manipulated. Voting locations are closing, so millions can't vote.
Okay, this guy wouldn't bother doing such things. So
Especially in the language.
even though I know he was like studying in Switzerland before, like they made him the supreme leader.
Yes.
So he may actually speak English, but like he, from his position, this would be like not on his agenda at all. So like people from outside the Western culture are actually more difficult for us, I think, to process.
Because we're not used to the facial
and
features.
he's like not moving at all, when giving a speech. So, but
based on context,
why would he bother, do this? So
we say fake?
Yeah, I would say this is fake. Yes.
And you're correct again. Okay. Now it's just audio. U.S. President Joe Biden calling voters.
New Hampshire presidential preference primary. Republicans have been trying to push nonpartisan and Democratic voters to participate in their primary. What a bunch of malarkey. We know the value of voting Democratic when our votes count. It's important that you save your vote for the November election. We'll need your help in electing Democrats up and down the ticket. Voting this Tuesday only enables the Republicans in their quest to elect Donald Trump again. Your vote makes a difference in November, not this Tuesday. If you would like to be removed from future calls, please press 2 now.
Okay. I would say that the audio is like, it was difficult even before AI, right?
Yes.
So I can't really tell. Like we can only judge whether this would make sense for a particular side to like convey this message.
Yes.
Only this.
What about the ending with the "if you'd like to be removed from future calls"? And would President of the United States bother with that?
Maybe that would make it fake. But since you have you brought this up,
Yes.
I would otherwise probably mark it as real. So let's mark.
I don't know if it's real or fake. I myself don't know. So
Okay, let's put real there as Okay. Right, Robocal telling.
yeah, fake audio clip.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, right. I overheard the beginning, and
Okay.
I thought this was about Republican primaries.
The opposite.
Which was, yes, if I had this in mind, okay, he's talking about Democratic primaries, that would be very strange because politicians usually don't discourage people from voting anywhere. Like that would be very strange for them to do so. So yeah, that should trigger suspicion. Yeah. True.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
That was
very good.
fun. That was fun.
Very good. Well done. So it's not just about, again, the technology, but it's about the critical thinking. I think this very proved it. It's having the context and knowing what's going on.
Yes,
around us.
sometimes it's only based on
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Thinking whether something makes sense, but prompting one into really deep critical assessment that just doesn't happen in your normal situations. So
Because you sometimes only have a couple seconds with that piece of content. Why are people so susceptible to believing misinformation? Is it because they're bombarded?
first of all, people tend to be in general undereducated for this world.
Oh, that's hard. That's a harsh thing to say. But
Yes, but it's true.
yeah.
Because we are on a path to civilization cataclysm, basically. We can't handle ourselves on this planet ecologically, societally. We should have enough information about how destructive wars are, etc. Yet we still do them. So
Yeah, we
we
keep making
can
the same mistakes. True.
so and the part of the problem of undereducation is that people don't think critically. They are not really used to critically evaluating information. if they see something, they tend to believe what they see because that's how our brains are just wired.
Well, yeah, we're biased, of course.
We are biased, but even if we were put into completely new like circumstances without any prior knowledge, we still like tend to believe what we see. So when a piece of information caters to one's prejudices and biases, the confirmation bias makes the job. So people naturally are trusting something that is in line with their own
Beliefs.
worldviews, and if they are like closed in a recommender system loop or let's
Those
say a
bubbles that we
filter
see.
bubble,
Yes.
then they tend to be fed with mostly content that caters to their prejudices, and so they are even like strengthened in their beliefs. So yeah, that's the mechanism.
That's why I, for example, subscribe to things I don't fully agree with as well, to make sure that I get both sides of certain spectrums.
That's very good practice, and but it requires a conscious decision
Yeah.
of a
It does,
person
of
to
course.
do it, and most people just don't do it.
Should they?
Of course, yes. Even if that may feel painful, it really isn't.
Sometimes it is painful, that's true.
Yeah.
Especially reading the comments
But
sometimes.
but down the road, it creates more open-minded persons.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting how this particular part of technology use is very behavior based. It's more about psychology than it is about the actual technology used behind it.
Yes. By the way, we are completely like losing common ground as a society. Like people are fragmented into several camps that don't speak to each other, and these camps like share less and less like common facts, like accepted by everyone. If we reach a point where even like basic things won't be shared and accepted by all people, that's
Haven't we
where
reached
the,
that
when the
point?
I don't know.
In some
areas, probably yes.
Yeah.
But it can be worse.
Your institute, or the institute that you work at, where you're a researcher, a lead researcher, is an AI research institute. Can AI be used to combat the spread?
Yeah, certainly.
Tell us more about that.
Even though, like today, really AI is more contributing to spreading of this info.
Yes, yes.
We can use certain AI techniques to like help, for example, professionals that are combating disinformation. People from media, journalists, fact checkers. All these needs tools that perhaps can streamline their work, make them more efficient. But don't think that the technology is there to just directly do the truthfulness check. That's too difficult
So
right
we need
now.
the human element still.
Yes. And the humans should be in charge here. If someone like...
The critically thinking humans.
yes, of course.
Yeah.
We shouldn't leave these decisions to machines yet. Like
In the future, we might.
if someone like reliably proves that at least for certain areas a machine is like a good predictor of truthfulness, okay, then more invasive operations could be done. Like, for example, nerfing a post that is like highly probable disinformation, okay, but we are not there yet.
Yeah.
And but still algorithms do this, as we were discussing.
They do, happily.
So if someone, for example, is talking about the censorship, that's it's almost like an F word. in certain countries, right?
Yeah.
Well, first and foremost, the major censorship today is done exactly by these recommender systems who decide what are you going to see in your feed. Because not showing you something can be considered a censorship. Is it, right? But no one
DNS
perceives.
filtering can be used for that as well.
DNS filtering, yes. Yes, of course.
And it is in some countries, yeah.
Yes. And so like but people like in a common discourse don't consider this as censorship. Yet it is the biggest censorship by far, like today. Like moderating a discussion under my post where I hide like hateful comments that may appear there, like that's much lesser impact. It's perceived by those affected, of course, but why do they even saw my post in the first place?
Exactly. Is there a balance between free speech and I don't want to say censorship, but moderation?
I don't know. It's arbitrary. It's based on the societal agreement, I would say. The amount of information is much larger than the ability of a single person to process everything. So we need some kind of filter. And already there, people can make claims of censorship. So the word, the concept of censorship, like to me, it sometimes it's ridiculously like overstretched and overused.
Because we've always had it, and it always will be. It just depends on what level.
And people that call for like complete free speech don't really understand that there isn't such a thing as complete freedom, because that would be like maddening. It would mean that every single information like just has to reach you. Otherwise there's some sort of censorship and filtering, etc.
Wow. I've never thought of it that way, to be honest. With all of that being said, can you give our viewers and listeners your top 3 pieces of advice to stay safe online?
Yeah. First advice is read books. Don't be online.
All the time?
Just cut it to 1/10 of your original online time. Of course, if you work online, that's different.
Yes.
But like spending extensive amount of free time on social media, like reconsider what that brings to you.
Yeah, the world is beautiful outside.
Go and talk to people in person, hang out with people.
And third piece?
Third piece. No, that would be it.
That would be it. Okay. Okay, good. I like that. Spend less time online. I like that. Yeah, especially with the younger generation, I think that's very good.
That applies to everyone.
Yes. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot that was sort of skimmed through, but we could definitely go more in depth. So we would love to have you again sometime if you'll have us. And thank you, all of you, for being with us, listening and watching. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media to not miss an episode, but don't spend too much time online. And we'll see you next time.